scholars and scientists from around the world, including the astronaut Neil Anderson. Because when you go up, Neil Armstrong, pardon me, thank you. When you go up in the white man's contraption that he calls his, the Apollo, Neil went up and he saw it. And he heard sounds coming from it. Neil Armstrong said that when he visited the Middle East, he heard the same sounds that he heard coming from the wheel. What sound did he hear? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. He heard that coming from the wheel. Yes, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, it's us up on the wheel. Muslims. Right.
At that time, several newspapers in the Muslim and non-Muslim world printed a story of Armstrong's conversion to Islam because of an experience that he had while on the moon. The reports say that Armstrong communicated that while on the moon, in addition to seeing the craft on the rim and the shadowy beams associated with the craft, he and his companions heard very clearly a strange, unrecognizable sound in their ears. When the astronauts returned to Earth, Neil went on a speaking tour to various countries. While in Cairo, Egypt, he happened to hear the adhan, which is the very musical, melodic call, Muslim call to prayer. Neil was astounded, the reports say, because he was hearing the same sound and the same words to the best of his recollection that he heard when on the moon.
Armageddon has already started. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the battle will be in the sky. It just don't mean airplanes. See, the battle has already begun. The battle is for the mind. Satan battling for your mind. God battling for your mind.
So in this clip, this is from this Sunday's past Dr. Wesley lecture at Mosque Marion. The title was Face to Face with God. I believe that's the whole title. So put your tinfoil caps on and get ready to call us crazy, but you can't call us crazy for too long because too much evidence out there. So I was supposed to have been made this video and put this clip together, but when I seen Dr. Wesley Muhammad put some information that I heard the minister say in a video a while back, I was like, hell, let me go ahead and just kind of piece it together. So I had heard the minister say that Neil Armstrong had, you know, when he went up on the Apollo mission in the space, they space contraption, whatever it's called, they mission or whatever, that he saw some things and heard some things, and you know, you heard it in the intro. You heard the call to prayer, and they tried to keep that under wraps for a while. So when I heard Brother Wesley reiterate that, I was like, man, let me go ahead and just piece this together how I seen it. But of course, Brother Dr. Wesley, the special ops team, he brought some information that I ain't always bring some information I ain't never heard, never saw. Some you can, what's the word, reliable, you can trust it, or something of that nature, one of them. But trying to get all my little words out, but I'll probably come back to it. Let's get into the clip.
Earlier we noted that December 2017 ushered in this new era of official UFO disclosure. Government leaks and government confessions, coupled with a new never before seen media friendliness toward the subject has a lot of people praising the government for this unprecedented openness about a matter that was so taboo for so long. Others, like myself, are more cautious. Some of us are wise enough to know that any apparent act of government transparency or truth-telling should always give us pause. They are the masters of doublespeak. And that is certainly the case here. All of this government and media talk about UFOs is both genuinely revealing and deliberately misleading, especially on one particular point. Who's flying the UFOs? There could be scheduled another 5 congressional hearings on UAPs, and I doubt, family, that you will ever openly hear the true answer to that question from any government or intelligence official. The last, best-kept secret of the UFO phenomenon is the Asiatic blackness of the pilots. Ufology, the study of the UFO phenomenon, is a quietly but demonstrably racist field of study. Most of the major voices of this discipline are low-key white supremacists. Maybe many of them don't even know it. Ufologists accuse the government of cover-up, and they are correct. However, both the government and the ufologists are party to the cover-up of the black pilots of these craft. The so-called extraterrestrial hypothesis or alien theory is nothing less than New Age racial Darwinism. In the old age, racial Darwinism has already been proven to be a racist falsehood. You must know that the whole alien narrative as it exists today is largely the product of a government intelligence disinformation operation. For example, the so-called reptilian character associated with the UFO phenomenon is a disinformation device used to disguise the black identity of the pilots and to villainize them. When America confirmed in 1947 that the pilots of the UFOs represented a black superpower, the intelligence community immediately began associating these highly advanced craft with green, villainous aliens. All of it is concoction and fabrication. The grays, the greens, the Nordic whites, all of them are devices created and used to keep you as far from the truth of the black reality of this technology. Now, I just said a whole mouthful. You want to know where my evidence for such a big mouth claim is. We have a whole book full of evidence. But we'll start here. Eminent Russian cosmonauts Vladimir Kovalyonok and Viktor Savinik were aboard the Russian orbital space station Salyut 6 for 77 days when, on May 14th through the 18th, 1981, they had a remarkable space encounter. The cosmonauts observed from the windows of Salyut 6 a silver, unidentified spacecraft from a half-mile away that approached the space station to within 100 feet. With 2 powerful binoculars that they had on board, both Kovalyonok and Savinik could see clearly inside the silver craft through portholes that lined its hull. They observed 3 beings inside the craft, and the cosmonauts were able to give a pretty detailed description of them because the encounter lasted a whole 4 days straight. The 3 beings were fully human in appearance, tall with very distinct facial features. Their skin was brown like an East Indian. Their eyes were slanted like Japanese, but the iris was a bright blue. The nose was straight. This description given of the beings encountered out in space by the Russian cosmonauts may strike you as remarkably unlikely or indeed alien. But it is neither. Rather, it is a distinctly authentic Asiatic black phenotype. In fact, genetic mapping of a 10,000-year-old specimen indicates that Britain, for example, was populated by a similarly dark brown skinned, bright blue-eyed population thousands of years before Caucasian people came on the planet. So the so-called aliens that the Russian cosmonauts encountered in space were authentic Asiatic black men. Throughout the 4-day encounter, the cosmonauts stayed in steady contact with mission control, who instructed them on what to do and what not to do. The encounter was filmed with the space station's camera, both the craft and the black beings who at one point exited the craft. Upon Kovalovnik and Savinik's return to Earth, a very high-level secret meeting was held in Moscow at the Ministry of Plans building on June 18, 1981. Before an astonished assembly of 200, consisting of leaders of the Communist Party, scientists, and members of Russia's UFO Studies Commission, the film was shown and a report on the space encounter with the brown-skinned, blue-eyed spacewalkers was presented by the head of the Russian Cosmonaut Training Center. That film remains classified in Russia today. It's not just Russians who have encountered the Asiatic black man, black gods in space. The U.S. has as well. Some of you may know eminent NASA scientist, Dr. Norman Berggren, an aeronautical engineer who also worked for Douglas Aircraft Company during World War II, and as well as Lockheed Missiles and Space Company. He had a security clearance above that of the President of the United States. One of Dr. Berggren's duties was to inspect data from the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 space probes that went up in 1977. He analyzed images of Saturn sent back from the probes. On one occasion, at the Alameda Naval Shipyard in California, he also came in contact with a lunar photo originating from the famous Apollo 11 moon landing of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin in July 1969. In this short video clip from an interview with Project Camelot's Carrie Cassidy, Dr. Berggren tells us the significance of this photo. Video, please.
Okay.
Hey, those things are real.
Okay, but if there are craft, there are beings. So are you not positing the idea that those vehicles contain, beings who are, maybe like us?
Yeah, I only go along with government images. And if you want to know about people kind of thing, there is the ship that picked up the Voyager capsule at the Alameda Naval Shipyard, and they have a picture there of I think it's the Apollo flight that Buzz and Neil were on. But anyway, there is one image there that shows black people getting off.
So people with dark skin getting off.
Not dark, black.
Black skin.
Really black. Yeah.
Were they tall?
Yes.
Very tall?
Yeah.
How tall? Do you know?
Well, they got out the doorway. I don't know how high that is, but
Well, what?
they say 7 feet would be probably a conservative estimate.
Have you heard about Clark McClellan's statement about that?
No.
Oh, you haven't? Have you ever been in touch with him?
No.
No?
I have tried to stay independent and not be affected by others' opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Not dark, black. Don't play with words. 7 feet tall, really black people are the pilots of these spacecraft. What you used to call UFOs, but what we have always called baby planes. But I must amend my earlier declaration as I begin landing this plane. The last, best kept secret of the UFO phenomenon is not only that the pilots are black, it is that they are black and Muslim. Black Muslim. A most important but very reluctant witness to this fact is none other than Neil Armstrong, the first white man to set foot on the black man's moon. The lunar module, the lander spacecraft piloted by Neil and Buzz, landed on the moon's surface inside the Sea of Tranquility crater. Neil Armstrong was the first to exit the module and make that first step for mankind. According to multiple credible sources, when he looked up at the edge of the crater, he saw huge craft, either 2 or 3, parked around a part of the crater rim. He transmitted to mission control, quote, "There are other ships here. They're parked on the side of the crater. They're watching us." Armstrong reportedly was equipped with a camera, which he panned in a 360-degree motion around the crater. According to a private correspondence between Armstrong and a former military official who headed a UFO investigation group, Armstrong saw beings descend from these other spacecraft. These were no doubt the 7-foot-tall black space people in the photograph witnessed by Dr. Norman Berggren. Of course, when Neil and Buzz got back to Earth, they were forced to remain silent about what they saw and heard on the moon on that day. The CIA classified the footage taken by Armstrong's camera as way above top secret. According to family and close friends of the astronauts, the CIA not only swore them to secrecy, but threatened their wives and children with death if the men violated the oath of secrecy. While Buzz Aldrin seems to have stuck to the official script, Neil Armstrong seems to have had a much more difficult time negotiating his personal truth with the demands of the national security state. He reportedly wanted to publicly reveal what he experienced, and in private conversations with notable persons, he shared some things, only to have to publicly deny these claims later. And the U.S. government clearly coerced at least some of these denials. A particularly instructive case occurred in January 1983. At that time, several newspapers in the Muslim and non-Muslim world printed a story of Armstrong's conversion to Islam because of an experience that he had while on the moon. The reports say that Armstrong communicated that while on the moon, in addition to seeing the craft on the rim and the shadowy beings associated with the craft, he and his companions heard very clearly a strange, unrecognizable sound in their ears. When the astronauts returned to Earth, Neil went on a speaking tour to various countries. While in Cairo, Egypt, he happened to hear the adhan, which is the very musical, melodic Muslim call to prayer. Neil was astounded, the reports say, because he was hearing the same sound and the same words to the best of his recollection that he heard when on the moon. When Neil asked his Egyptian companion what it was he was hearing, and he was told it was the Muslim call to prayer, Armstrong studied Islam and, they say, found God. When this news leaked out, the Muslim world was abuzz over it, and the U.S. government took extreme measures to counter the report. In March 1983, the State Department took the initiative to speak on Armstrong's behalf and denied that he converted to Islam. The State Department sent an official memo to all East Asian and Pacific diplomatic and consular posts throughout the Muslim world, declaring that, quote, Armstrong has advised the department that reports of his conversion to Islam are inaccurate. The diplomatic recipients of this memo were instructed to politely but firmly deny, whenever asked, that Armstrong converted to Islam and that he had any desire to participate in any Islamic religious activity. 2 months later in May, no doubt at the urgency of and or with the assistance of the State Department, a televised press conference was held in the American Center in New Delhi, India, in which journalists were linked by telephone directly to Neil Armstrong's office in Ohio, so that they can hear his direct denial that he was a Muslim. He also claimed that he had never even been to Egypt. These are rather extreme political measures from the government to take over a personal matter of a private citizen. This lets you know that the story has truth to it, a truth that triggered the government's suppression apparatus. A number of esteemed persons have undercut Armstrong's public denial by themselves publicly recounting their personal encounters with him in Egypt and discussing scientific facts about the moon in the Quran with Armstrong. They speak of seeing a video of Armstrong in the Islamic Republic of Iran engaging in Salatul Kusuf, the solar eclipse prayer of the Muslims. And they speak of a talk Armstrong gave where he mentioned hearing the adhan on the moon. Armstrong seems to be the one from Apollo 11 who wrestled the hardest with the CIA's gag order. Over the years, he let things slip, and then, no doubt under duress, he had to call them back. Now, I know some of you more scientifically learned ones are likely incredulous about this particular point. How could Neil Armstrong hear the adhan on the moon when sound waves need a medium like air or water to travel in, but the moon is surrounded by a vacuum and has no atmosphere? How is it possible Armstrong heard anything at all? I understand. You could probably get your objection overcome if you talk to either of the Apollo 10 astronauts who circled the moon 2 months before the Apollo 11 crew landed on the moon. When the Apollo 10 crew were on the far side of the moon and out of the range of Earth, they all began hearing very strange sounds in their headsets, sounds that they described as weird, outer spacey type music. They heard it for a full hour, and the weird music was recorded and transmitted to Mission Control in Houston. It was not until 2016 that NASA acknowledged this event, and they put out some tiny clip of some whistling sound that's supposed to be the outer space type music that the Apollo 11 crew heard. I ain't buying it. They want you. In fact, they never want you to make the connection between the black Muslims up there and the black Muslims down here in your midst. They never want that. The revelation that the power behind this advanced military technology that dominates not only the skies but space and the ocean depths, the revelation that it is legit a black Muslim power, would naturally compel you to make the connection. And once you make that compelling connection, the world comes face to face with the divine reality of this man right here. This is what they never want to click. With you.
Such is the power of Allah, and we have not tasted his power yet. I mean, just a little shaking. Just a little shaking, and buildings and cities can come tumbling down on the inhabitants. Such is the power of a mighty creator. He's not someone to be played with. He is someone to be feared. And if you read the Quran says that when Allah is ready to destroy a people, he first gives them a peep into the heavens. Now, white folks have gotten a little contraption together, and they sent their cameras out, and they got a peep at Mars, and they went on down, got a peep at Uranus, And just a few weeks ago, they sent back pictures of Neptune. And all that they thought about the planets, they have to reorganize all their thinking because they began to see that they were far off. These are signs of the end. In Germany, next month, in the last week of the month, they are going to have an international conference on UFOs. UFOs are what they call unidentified flying objects, which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad identified for us over 60 years ago, approximately 60 years ago. Now, you've been told all your life, not all your life, but in these last 20 or so years, 30 years, that these circular planes are from some extraterrestrial place, meaning outside of the earth. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us, not so. They are from the earth, but they're from our scientists, the scientists of the original people of the earth. And they're there to destroy this world, particularly America. Hey, I don't mean to frighten you, because many have mocked the presence of these planes. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to tell us about it, some say, oh, I don't believe that. But if you open your Bible, Ezekiel said he saw 595 years before Jesus was born. Ezekiel was given a vision of a wheel in the middle of a wheel. Way up in the middle of the air, a wheel that was a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And it said there were eyes in the wheel round about. You can't have eyes unless you have human beings that can see. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it's planes made like the sphere of spheres, wheels within wheel, like the planets are wheels making orbits within wheels. You got it? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the mother wheel is 1/2 a mile by 1/2 a mile, and it's a city. It's built, made like a city. And everything you got down here for civilization, they got it up there on the wheel, plus 1,500 little wheels that are bombing planes. Now, you can choose to believe it or not, but they're not having a conference in Germany because it's a hoax. And guess who they're inviting to the conference? Scholars and scientists from around the world, including the astronaut Neil Anderson. Because when you go up, Neil Armstrong, pardon me, thank you. When you go up in the white man's contraption that he calls his, what did he call that? It's a, I remember the exact name that they called the one that Neil Armstrong was on, the Apollo. Neil went up and he saw it. And he heard sounds coming from it. Now all this is high-level secret stuff. They don't want the common people to know that there is something out there that white folk didn't put up there that they cannot deal with, because they want you to believe that they are the power on the earth, in the air, under the sea, but it just ain't so. Just not so. Now this high-level conference, if it is Allah's will, we're going to send a few of our representatives to the conference, because we know a lot about the wheel and we want to see how close they come to what we have already been taught. You know they don't expect no black people there. That's hush-hush stuff. It's passed about in other circles that we don't function in. Well, anyway, Neil Armstrong said that when he visited the Middle East, he heard the same sounds that he heard coming from the wheel. What sound did he hear? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. He heard that coming from the wheel. Yes, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, it's us up on the wheel. Muslims, righteous people, who are there not only to destroy the wicked, but on the wheel is the seed of an entirely new civilization. In the book of Revelation, John says, and I saw a city come down from heaven. Huh? What city do you know that's up in heaven? Man, shoot. And look, 2 years ago, on the front page of the Washington Post, a seasoned Japanese pilot who had been a pilot for some 28 years saw the wheel and got it on his radar and tracked it for, I think it was, an hour and a half. And he described it. Now, he was on a 747 cargo plane. And if you've ever seen a 747, that is a huge plane. He made a drawing of what he saw and put the 747 near it, and it looked like you could get the 747 in it almost or more than 100 times. And look at this. He said the size of it was like 2 of the large aircraft carriers. And the largest aircraft carrier that the white man has made is a 1/4 mile long. 2 of them would be what? A 1/2 mile. And what did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tell us that Master Farad Muhammad taught him? That it was a 1/2 mile by a 1/2 mile. And before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad left us, he told me that you would soon be seeing the little planes over the major cities of America, to let you know that it's time now. And you are not to be afraid of the power of white people, because there's enough juice on one of those planes, just one of the little ones, to do some terrific damage. I just want white folks who are listening to the broadcast to know you can come after me anytime you are ready to die. If I am of myself, then you ain't got to worry about me. If I'm making something up, then you don't have to worry about me. Because you know a phony when you see one, because you're the chief of phonies. But if I'm a true man of God, from God, then it's wise for you to leave me alone and let me do my work. In fact, it would be wise of you to help me.
Now, I don't know how much proof y'all need. It ain't take a whole lot for me, myself, personally. But, you know, we're going to continue to put it out or put it in your face. But it's in your face now. But I'm going to put I just came back to, I'm going to put the link to last Sunday's broadcast in the description, and that full video of the minister in the description. So, here y'all go. Peace and blessings. Catch you on the next one.